The morning alarm buzzed through the metal halls of New Seoul Space Station. Park Min-ho rolled over in his small bunk and hit the snooze button for the third time. He had been working late again, fixing broken air filters in the lower levels. The station never slept, and neither did its problems. Min-ho pulled on his gray work clothes and grabbed his tool bag. Another day, another list of things to fix. He walked down the corridor toward the maintenance office, passing dozens of other workers heading to their jobs. The station was home to 50,000 people, and something was always breaking. The hallways were filled with the sound of news broadcasts. Giant screens showed the same story over and over. Min-ho barely paid attention until he heard the words. That made everyone stop walking. The Galactic Combat Federation has announced this year's Universal Championship Tournament, the newsreader said. Every known species in the galaxy is invited to send their best fighter. The winner will receive advanced technology, new territory rights, and the respect of all civilizations. Min-ho paused at a coffee stand and listened while he waited for his drink. The tournament happened every 5 years. It was the biggest event in the galaxy. Species from hundreds of worlds would send their strongest warriors to fight for the ultimate prize. Earth's selection committee will meet today to choose our representative, the broadcast continued. The tournament will take place on the neutral world of Kepler 4-4 to be in 6 months. Min-ho got his coffee and kept walking. The tournament was interesting, but it had nothing to do with him. He was just a maintenance worker who fixed things when they broke. He had never even been in a real fight at the maintenance office. His supervisor Lee Soo-jin was watching the news with worried eyes. She had worked on the station for 15 years and knew how important the tournament was for human relations. With other species, Min-ho, you made it, she said, without looking away from the screen. We have a big problem in Section C. The air recycling system is making strange noises again. Min-ho nodded and checked his assignment pad. Section C was the worst part of the station. Everything there was old and constantly breaking. He had spent more time in that section than anywhere else. Did you hear about the tournament? Soo-jin asked. A little, Min-ho said. Sounds like a big deal. It is. If we send someone weak, other species will think humans are not worth respecting. If we send someone strong and they lose badly, it might be even worse. Min-ho picked up his tools and headed for the door. I am sure they will find someone good. 3 hours later, Min-ho was deep in the machinery of Section C. The air recycling system was making a grinding noise that meant the filters were clogged again. He had replaced these filters dozens of times, but they kept getting dirty from all the dust in the lower levels. He was lying on his back, reaching into a narrow space between 2 large machines, when his work pad beeped with an urgent message. Min-ho ignored it and kept working. The message beeped again, then again. Finally, he pulled himself out from under the machine and checked the pad. The message was from Director Han Woo-bin himself. That was strange. Directors never sent messages. 2 maintenance workers. Park Min-ho, report to conference room A immediately. This is not a request. Min-ho frowned. He had never been to conference room A. That was where important people had meetings about important things. He wiped his hands on his coveralls and took the elevator to the upper levels. Conference room A was bigger than his entire living space. A long table sat in the center, surrounded by chairs that probably cost more than Min-ho made in a month. Director Han Woo-bin sat at the head of the table with 5 other people Min-ho did not recognize. Park Min-ho, the director said, please sit down. Min-ho sat in the chair closest to the door, ready to leave quickly if needed. His work clothes looked very out of place in the fancy room. Do you know why you are here? Director Han asked. Sir, did I do something wrong? Nothing wrong. We have a problem, and you might be the solution. The director touched a button on the table. A holographic display appeared, showing combat rankings for all registered fighters on Earth. Our top fighters are all busy defending human colonies on the Outer Rim. We cannot call them back. Our second-tier fighters are either injured or too old. We need to send someone to represent Earth in the Galactic Tournament. Min-ho looked at the display. Thousands of names were listed with their combat scores. He found his own name at the very bottom of the list. His scores were terrible in every category except one strange measurement called adaptability under pressure. I do not understand, Minho said. You are the only available fighter we have left, Director Han said. Your combat training scores are low, but you've passed all the required tests. Technically, you are qualified to represent Earth. One of the other people at the table, a woman with military insignia, spoke up. Sir, with respect, this is not a good idea. His combat skills are below average. He has never been in a real fight. The other species will laugh at us. I know, Director Han said, but what choice do we have? We cannot refuse to send someone. That would be worse than sending someone weak. Minho looked around the table at the faces staring at him. Looked worried and unhappy. He felt like he was in a bad dream. What exactly would I have to do? He asked. Fight, Director Han said. The tournament is single elimination. You would fight representatives from other species until you either win or lose. The fights take place in different environments with different challenges. I am not a fighter, Minho said. I fix things. I have never hurt anyone in my life. No, the director said. But you are good at solving problems under pressure. Maybe that will be enough. Minho thought about this. He was good at fixing things when they broke. When the air recycling system failed and people could not breathe, he found a way to make it work. When the gravity generators went crazy and everything started floating, he figured out how to fix them. When the food processors stopped working and 40,000 people needed to eat, he made them run again. But fighting alien warriors was not the same as fixing machines. What happens if I say no? Minho asked. You send no one, Director Han said. Earth looks weak and cowardly to the entire galaxy. Other species stop taking us seriously. Trade agreements get canceled, defense pacts disappear, humans become second-class citizens in galactic society. The room was quiet for a long moment. Minho looked at the holographic display showing his pathetic combat scores. He thought about his small room and his simple life fixing things that broke. He thought about the thousands of people on the station who depended on him to keep their air clean and their lights working.
When do I leave?
He asked. Director Han smiled for the first time since Minho had entered the room. In 2 weeks, we will arrange for some basic combat training, but there is not much time. Can I finish fixing the air recycling system in Section C first? Minho asked. It is making a bad noise, and if it breaks completely, people will have trouble breathing. The military woman stared at him in disbelief. You are about to represent the entire human species in the most important combat tournament in the galaxy. And you are worried about an air filter? Minho nodded. Someone has to fix it. If I do not, who will? Director Han laughed, though it sounded more tired than happy. Go fix your air filter, Minho, and we will talk about how to keep you alive. In the tournament, Minho stood up and walked toward the door. As he reached for the handle, he heard one of the people at the table whisper to another, We are sending a maintenance worker to fight the galaxy's greatest warriors. This is going to be a disaster. Minho paused at the door, but he did not turn around. He had heard people doubt him before. Every time something broke that seemed impossible to fix, someone said it could not be done. But he always found a way. Maybe fighting was just another kind of problem that needed solving. He went back to Section C and got back to work. The air recycling system was still making that grinding noise, but Minho had an idea about how to fix it. He always had ideas about how to fix things, even when they seemed impossible to fix. The transport ship to Kepler-4 for 2B was nothing like the fancy vessels Minho had seen in movies. It was a basic cargo hauler with passenger seats bolted to the floor. Minho sat in the back with his small bag of tools and a change of clothes. The trip would take for days. Other passengers on the ship talked excitedly about the tournament. Most were reporters, merchants, and tourists going to watch the fights. Minho listened to their conversations and learned things that made his stomach feel tight. The Vosk champion has never lost a fight, one reporter said. Gorthok is 8 feet tall and can break steel with his bare hands. His scales are harder than armor. What about the Nexari fighter? Another passenger asked. I heard Shardvel can change their body into any shape they want. Weapons, shields, even vehicles. The Hivemind warrior is the scariest, a third person said. It shares the fighting experience of millions of creatures. It knows every combat technique that has ever been used. Minho pulled his maintenance manual from his bag and tried to read. The words blurred together as he thought about fighting creatures that could break steel and change shape. He had never even been in a bar fight. The ship arrived at Kepler-4 for to be. On a bright morning, Minho looked out the window and saw the most amazing sight of his life. Massive arenas floated in the sky like metal islands. Each one was different. Some looked like giant spheres, others like crystal pyramids, and some like twisted metal sculptures. Ships from hundreds of worlds filled the sky. Minho saw vessels that looked like living creatures, others that seemed to be made of pure light, and some that hurt his eyes to look at directly. The transport landed at a busy spaceport. Minho followed the other passengers through customs and security. Guards from different species checked documents and scanned everyone for weapons. When they scanned Minho's tool bag, they found his wrenches and screwdrivers. "What are these?" "4," asked a guard with blue skin and 4 arms. "Fixing things," Minho said. The guard looked confused, but let him pass. Outside the spaceport, Minho saw his first alien fighters. A group of reptilian creatures stood near a huge black ship. They were at least 7 feet tall with thick scales and claws like knives. One of them had to be Gorthak. The creature was talking to reporters and flexing muscles that looked like tree trunks. "I will crush any opponent," Gorthak said in a voice like grinding rocks. "The humans are fools to send such a weak representative. I will finish their fighter in seconds." Minho tried to walk past without being noticed, but a reporter spotted him. "There he is," the reporter shouted. "That's Earth's fighter." Suddenly, dozens of cameras pointed at Minho. He stood there in his work clothes, holding his small bag, while alien reporters asked him questions in languages he did not understand. Gorthak looked at Minho and started laughing. It was a terrible sound, like rocks falling down a mountain. "This is what Earth sends? A small human in dirty clothes? I thought they were at least trying to win." Other alien fighters gathered around to see what was happening. Minho saw creatures, made of crystal, gas, metal, and things he could not identify. They all looked at him like he was a strange bug. A crystalline being that had to be Shardvul flowed closer. Their bodies shifted and changed as they moved, sometimes looking like a person, sometimes like a weapon. "Fascinating," they said, in a voice like breaking glass. "The humans have given up before the tournament even begins." "Maybe it is a joke," said another creature that looked like a walking tree. "Humans are known for their strange sense of humor." Minho felt his face turn red. He wanted to explain that he was not trying to be funny, but the words stuck in his throat. He'd never been good at talking to strangers, and these were not just strangers. They were alien warriors who could probably kill him with one hit. A human woman in an expensive suit pushed through the crowd. Minho recognized her from the news broadcasts. She was Yoon Harry, the tournament director and one of the most important humans in galactic politics. "That's enough," she said firmly. "The opening ceremony begins in 2 hours. All fighters need to report to the registration area." The alien creatures dispersed, but Minho could hear them talking and laughing about him as they walked away. Yoon Harry waited until they were gone, then turned to Minho with worried eyes. "Walk with me," she said. They walked through the spaceport toward the registration area. Around them, aliens of every description moved through the crowds. Some flew, some crawled, and some moved in ways that made no sense. "I know who you are," Yoon Harry said. "Park Minho, maintenance worker from New Seoul Station. I also know why you are here. The question is, do you understand what is at stake?" "People keep telling me it is important," Minho said, "but I do not really understand why. Humans have been part of the galactic community for only 50 years. She explained. "We are still proving ourselves. Other species watch everything we do. If we look weak or stupid, they treat us like children. Trade deals disappear. Defense agreements get canceled. Human colonies lose protection." They stopped at a viewing platform that looked out over the tournament grounds. Minho could see thousands of aliens in the crowds below. Most of them were bigger, stronger, and more dangerous looking than any human. "I have spent 20 years building relationships with alien governments," Yoon Harry continued. "I have convinced them that humans are worth respecting. But if you get destroyed in your first fight, all that work disappears. Minho looked down at his work clothes and, "Tool bag, maybe you should have sent someone else."
There was no one else,
she said sadly. "Our best fighters are defending human colonies. Our second best fighters are injured or too old. You were the only option." "What if I just forfeit?" Minho asked. "Say I am sick or something. That'd be worse than losing badly." "Would make humans look like cowards." They reached the registration area, where a long line of fighters waited to check in. Minho joined the line behind a creature that looked like a walking mountain of rocks. The creature turned around and looked down at him. "You are very small," it said in a voice like an earthquake. "Are you sure you are in the right line?" "Think so," Minho said. The rock creature shook its head and turned back around. Minho heard it mutter something in its own language that sounded like falling boulders. When Minho reached the registration desk, the alien with tentacles instead of arms checked his paperwork. The creature looked at Minho, then at the papers. Then back at Minho. "It says you are Earth's representative," the creature said. "Yes. Are you certain?" "You do not look like a fighter." "I am certain." The creature stamped Minho's papers and handed him a badge with the number 847. "You will be staying in fighter. Housing block 12, room 847. Your first fight is in 3 days. The preliminary assessment is tomorrow morning." Minho took the badge. "And papers." "What is the preliminary assessment?" "Standard tests. Strength, speed, reflexes, tactical knowledge. It's nothing too difficult." Minho nodded and walked away. Behind him, he heard the registration creature talking to its assistant. "You see that human? He will be lucky to survive the preliminary assessment, let alone an actual fight." "I heard the betting odds are 10,000 to 1 against him," the assistant replied. "That seems generous." Minho found his room in fighter housing block 12. It was small, but clean, with a bed, a desk, and a window that looked out over the tournament grounds. He put his bag on the bed and sat down to think. Tomorrow he would take tests that would probably show how unqualified he was. In 3 days, he would fight an alien warrior who could probably tear him apart. The entire human species was counting. On him not to embarrass them too badly, Minho opened his tool bag and looked at his wrenches and screwdrivers. These tools had helped him fix thousands of problems over the years. Broken machines, failing systems, impossible situations. He had always found a way to make things work. But this was different. This was not about fixing something that was broken. This was about fighting something that wanted to break him. He picked up his largest wrench and tested its weight in his hand. It was not much of a weapon, but it was better than nothing. Maybe he could at least put up a fight before he lost. Outside his window, the alien fighters were gathering in the courtyard. He could see Gorthak demonstrating combat moves to a group of reporters. The reptilian warrior moved with frightening speed and power. Every punch looked like it could punch through a wall. Minho watched for a while, then closed the curtains. He needed to get some sleep. Tomorrow would be a long day of tests that would probably confirm what everyone already knew. He was not a fighter. He was just a man who fixed things when they broke. But as he lay down on the bed, Minho found himself thinking about the air recycling system in Section C. Everyone had said it was impossible to fix. The filters were too clogged, the machinery too old, the design too flawed. But Minho had fixed it anyway. He had found a way to make it work. Maybe fighting was just another kind of problem that needed solving. Maybe he would find a way to make this work too. Minho woke up early on the morning of the preliminary assessment. He had not slept well. Strange sounds came from the other rooms all night. Some fighters made noises like grinding metal, others like howling wind. One creature sounded like it was constantly breaking apart and rebuilding itself. He put on his work clothes and went to the testing center. The building was huge, with different rooms for different types of tests. Hundreds of fighters moved through the halls, each one looking more dangerous than the last. The first test was strength. Minho watched other fighters lift massive weights and punch through thick metal plates. When his turn came, he could barely lift the lightest weight. The testing machine made a sad beeping sound and displayed his score 2 out of 100. The speed test was worse. Minho ran on a treadmill while lasers measured his movement. Creatures with 6 legs and wings flew past him like bullets. His score was 1 out of 100. The reflexes test involved dodging rubber balls shot from machines. Minho got hit by almost every ball. His score was 3 out of 100. The tactical knowledge test was a computer simulation of different battle scenarios. Minho had to choose the best strategy for each situation. He had never studied military tactics, so he just picked answers that seemed reasonable. Score was 8 out of 100. The testing official, creature with orange skin and 3 eyes, looked at Minho's results with confusion. "These are some of the lowest scores we have ever recorded," it said. "Are you sure you are a registered fighter?" "Yes," Minho said, showing his badge. "There must be some mistake. Perhaps you are a cook or a mechanic who got lost." "I am a maintenance worker," Minho said, "but I am also Earth's representative." The creature shook its head and stamped Minho's papers. "Good luck. You will need it." Minho left the testing center feeling embarrassed. Other fighters stared at him as he walked past. Some pointed and whispered. A few laughed openly. He heard one creature tell another that Earth must be desperate to send someone so weak. That afternoon, the tournament organizers announced the first-round matches. Minho found his name on a huge display screen. He was matched against Thrixon, a gaseous being from the Nebula territories. The fight would take place in 3 days on a high-radiation desert world. Minho had never heard of Thrixon, so he went to the tournament library to learn more. The library was filled with information about every fighter in the tournament. Minho found Thrixon's file and read it carefully. Thrixon was made of electrically charged gas. They could control electromagnetic fields and create lightning storms. They could also phase through solid matter, which made them almost impossible to hit. The file said they had won 47 fights and lost only 3. Minho's file was much shorter. It said he was a maintenance worker with no combat experience. His predicted survival time against Thrixon was listed as less than 5 minutes. The next 2 days passed quickly. Minho tried to prepare by reading about electromagnetic fields and radiation effects. He also studied the arena specifications. The Desert World Arena was designed to test how fighters handled extreme conditions. The night before his fight, Minho could not sleep at all. He lay in bed thinking about what would happen. Thrixon would probably create a lightning storm that would kill him instantly. Even if he survived the electricity, the radiation would be lethal. He got up and opened his tool bag. Inside were his wrenches, screwdrivers, wire cutters, and a small diagnostic device he used to check electrical systems. None of these things would help him fight a being made of charged gas, or would they? Minho spent the rest of the night reading the arena's technical specifications. Every arena was equipped with environmental controls, life support systems, and safety mechanisms. These systems were designed to create different fighting conditions. But they were still just machines, and Minho knew how to work with machines. The morning of the fight arrived. The bright sunshine and crowds of excited spectators. Minho took a transport shuttle to Arena 7, which floated high above the planet's surface. The arena was a dome-shaped structure with transparent walls that let spectators see inside, in the preparation room. Minho put on the basic protective gear all fighters were required to wear. The radiation suit was thick and heavy, but it would keep him alive in the high radiation environment. He also carried his tool bag, which tournament officials had approved as personal equipment. Yoonhaeri came to see him before the fight. She looked worried and tired. "Minho, I want you to know that no one expects you to win," she said. "Just try to survive as long as possible. Show that humans do not give up easily." "I will do my best," Minho said. "If it gets too dangerous, surrender immediately. A dead hero is no good to anyone." Minho nodded. He understood that she was trying to be kind, but her words made him feel worse. The arena was set to simulate a desert world with high radiation and extreme heat. The ground was covered with red sand and jagged rocks. The air shimmered with heat waves, and radiation meters showed dangerous levels throughout the arena. Minho entered from one side, while Thrixon entered from the other. The gaseous being looked like a cloud of glowing purple gas that constantly shifted and moved. Electrical sparks danced through their form like tiny lightning bolts. The crowd in the stands went quiet as they saw the two fighters. Minho, in his bulky radiation suit with a bag of tools, and Thrixon floating like a storm cloud ready to strike. The referee, a mechanical being with a voice like a computer, announced the rules. This is a standard elimination match.
The fight
Continues until one fighter surrenders or is unable to continue. Are both fighters ready? Ready, said Thrixon, in a voice like crackling electricity. Ready, said Minho, though his voice shook a little. Begin. Thrixon immediately rose into the air and began generating electromagnetic fields. The air around them crackled with energy as they prepared to create a lightning storm. Minho could feel the electricity building up, making his hair stand on end inside his helmet. Instead of running or trying to hide, Minho did something unexpected. He opened his tool bag and pulled out his diagnostic device. While Thrixon gathered power for their first attack, Minho began scanning the arena's electrical systems. The arena's environmental controls were more complex than anything Minho had worked on before, but the basic principles were the same. There were power generators, distribution networks, and safety systems. All of these were connected and controlled by a central computer. Thrixon launched their first attack. Lightning bolts shot from their gaseous form toward Minho. The bolts were incredibly bright and left burn marks on the arena floor. Minho rolled behind a large rock just as the lightning struck where he had been standing. "Why do you hide, small human?" Thrixon called out. "Come out and face your destruction." Minho stayed behind the rock and continued scanning the arena's systems with his diagnostic device. He found something interesting. The arena's radiation shielding system used electromagnetic fields to deflect dangerous particles. These fields were controlled by computers that could be accessed through maintenance panels. Thrixon sent another lightning storm toward Minho's hiding spot. The rock he was behind began to glow from the heat. Minho had to move or be cooked alive. He ran toward the nearest maintenance panel, while Thrixon floated after him, shooting lightning bolts. Minho reached the panel and quickly opened it with his screwdriver. Inside were circuits and wires that controlled the arena's environmental systems. "What are you doing?" Thrixon demanded. "Are you trying to hide in the machinery?" Minho did not answer. He was too busy rewiring the electromagnetic field generators. The arena's computer systems were designed to keep the fields stable, but Minho was changing their frequency and amplitude settings. Thrixon grew impatient and unleashed their most powerful attack. A massive bolt of lightning struck the maintenance panel, sending sparks flying. The electrical surge was so strong that it overloaded several of the arena's systems, but Minho had been expecting this. He had used his wire cutters to create a feedback loop in the electromagnetic field generators. When Thrixon's lightning hit the system, it was amplified and reflected back through the arena's shielding network. Suddenly, the entire arena became one giant electromagnetic trap. The fields that were supposed to protect spectators from radiation were now pulsing with chaotic energy. Thrixon, being made of electrically charged gas, found themselves caught in the middle of it. The gaseous being began to lose cohesion as their electromagnetic form was disrupted by the conflicting fields. They tried to maintain their shape, but the modified arena systems were working against them. "What have you done?" Thrixon cried out as their form began to scatter. "I fixed the problem," Minho said, still working at the maintenance panel. Thrixon attempted to escape the electromagnetic trap, but everywhere they moved, the fields followed. The arena's computer was now treating the gaseous being as a dangerous electrical anomaly that needed to be contained. The fight continued for another 10 minutes, with Thrixon growing weaker and more scattered. Finally, they were forced to condense into a small, stable form near the center of the arena. "I surrender," Thrixon said in a voice much quieter than before. "I cannot maintain my form in these conditions." The referee's mechanical voice announced the result. Winner, Park Min-ho of Earth. The crowd was silent for a long moment. A few beings began to clap, and the sounds spread through the arena. It was not the cheering of an excited crowd, but the slow, confused applause of people who had just seen something they did not understand. Minho closed the maintenance panel and picked up his tool bag. The arena's systems would return to normal once the computer reset itself. He walked toward the exit, where Yoon Harry was waiting with a shocked expression. "How did you do that?" she asked. "I treated it like a maintenance problem," Minho said. The arena's electromagnetic shielding had a feedback vulnerability. When Thrixon used their lightning attacks, I was able to turn the whole arena into a containment field. But you have never fought before. How did you know that would work? Minho thought about this for a moment. I have spent years working with electrical systems that were trying to kill me. This was just another electrical system that needed fixing. As they walked back to the transport shuttle, Minho could hear the crowd talking about what they had just witnessed. Some called it luck, others called it cheating. But a few beings seemed to understand that they had seen something new. Human had not won by being stronger or faster. He had won by making the arena itself fight for him. Minho did not pay attention to the talk. He was already thinking about his next opponent and wondering what kind of problem they would present. After all, every problem had a solution. He just had to find the right tools. News of Minho's victory spread quickly through the tournament complex. Most people did not know what to think about it. Official reports said he had won by technical manipulation of arena systems. But no one understood what that meant. Minho spent the evening in his room, reading about his next opponent. Kavorth was a warrior from the Siege Worlds. A group of planets were fighting was the most important skill anyone could have. Kavorth wore heavy metal armor and used weapons that could punch through starship holes. The file said Kavorth had won 73 fights and lost only 2. Both losses were against opponents who were faster than him. The report noted that Kavorth's armor was very heavy, which made him slow but nearly impossible to hurt. Minho studied the arena specifications for their fight. It would take place in zero gravity among a field of floating asteroids. The asteroids were real rocks from space, some as small as cars and others as big as buildings. The next morning, Minho went to the tournament cafeteria for breakfast. The food was strange but edible. As he ate, he listened to conversations at other tables. "The human got lucky," said a creature with silver skin and too many teeth. "Thrixon was overconfident. Will not happen again." "I heard he cheated somehow," said another being that looked like a walking tree. "He used tools that were not weapons." "Tools are allowed," said a third creature. "But using them to modify the arena system seems unfair." Minho finished his breakfast and went to the training areas. Most fighters were practicing combat moves, lifting weights, or sparring with training partners. Minho found an empty room with a computer terminal and began studying the asteroid. Field Arena. The arena's gravity generators created a zero-gravity environment by canceling out the planet's gravitational pull. The asteroids were held in place by magnetic anchors that could be adjusted to create different fighting conditions. Minho spent hours reading about how the gravity and magnetic systems worked. He also studied asteroid composition and behavior in zero gravity. By afternoon, he had a basic understanding of how the arena operated. 3 days later, it was time for his second fight. Minho put on a special suit designed for zero gravity. Combat. It had small thrusters that would let him move through space and magnetic boots that could stick to metal surfaces. In the preparation room, Yoon Harry came to see him again. She looked more hopeful than before, but still worried. "The whole galaxy is watching this fight," she said. "After your last victory, people are starting to pay attention to you." "What kind of attention?" Minho asked. "Some think you are more dangerous than you look. Others think you just got lucky. Few are starting to bet on you to win. What do you think?" Yoon Harry smiled. "I think you see problems differently than other people. Kavorth is a straightforward fighter. He will try to crush you with his armor and weapons, but maybe that gives you an advantage." "How?" "Straightforward problems are easier to solve than complicated ones." Minho thought about this as he walked to the arena. Kavorth was strong and tough, but he was also predictable. His armor made him slow, and his weapons were powerful but simple. The asteroid field arena was amazing to see. Huge rocks floated in empty space, slowly rotating and drifting. Some asteroids had metal surfaces that gleamed in the artificial sunlight. Others were dark and rough. Minho entered the arena through an airlock and immediately felt the strange sensation of zero gravity. His stomach wanted to float up into his throat. But he had experienced this before when working on space stations with broken gravity generators. Kvorth entered from the opposite side of the arena. The armored warrior was even bigger than Minho had expected. His suit was black metal covered with spikes and heavy weapons. Magnetic boots clanked against the metal floor as he walked to the center of the arena. "So you are the human who defeated Thrixin," Kvorth said in a voice like grinding gears. "I watched the recording. You will not trick me with your maintenance worker games." "I am not trying to trick anyone," Minho said. "I am just trying to solve problems." "The only problem here is that you are too weak to fight," Kvorth said. "I will make this quick." The referee gave the signal to begin. Kvorth immediately activated his magnetic boots and started walking across the asteroid surfaces toward Minho. His heavy armor made loud clanking sounds as he moved, and his weapons charged up with glowing energy. Minho used his suit's thrusters to fly to a nearby asteroid. He landed softly and began examining the magnetic anchor that held the rock in place. Like everything else in the arena, it was controlled by computer systems. Kvorth fired his first shot. A bolt of energy hit the asteroid where Minho had been standing and left a smoking crater. The armored warrior jumped from rock to rock using his magnetic boots, chasing after Minho with surprising speed. "Stop running and fight," Kvorth shouted. As he fired more energy blasts, Minho ignored the shouting and continued working on the magnetic anchors. He used his tools to access the control systems and began changing the settings. Instead of holding the asteroids in fixed positions, he was making them move. Kvorth reached the asteroid where Minho was working and swung a massive metal club. Minho pushed off with his thrusters just as the weapons smashed through the rock. The impact sent pieces of stone flying in all directions. "You cannot run forever, human," Kvorth said as he jumped to another asteroid. But Minho was not running anymore. He was implementing his solution. The arena's magnetic system was designed to hold asteroids in stable positions. But Minho had changed the magnetic field patterns to create instability. Now the asteroids were beginning to move in unpredictable ways. At first, the changes were small. A few rocks drifted slightly out of position. But as Minho continued to modify the magnetic anchors, the movement increased. Soon, asteroids were spinning and tumbling through the arena. Kvorth tried to adapt by using his magnetic boots to stick to the moving rocks. But his heavy armor made this difficult. Every time he landed on an asteroid, his weight caused it to spin faster or change direction. "What are you doing to my battlefield?" Kvorth demanded as he struggled to maintain his balance on a spinning rock. "I am fixing a stability problem," Minho said as he flew past on his thrusters. The asteroid field became more chaotic as Minho's modifications took effect. Rocks collided with each other, sending fragments flying in all directions. Some asteroids spun so fast that anything on their surface would be thrown off by centrifugal force. Kvorth found himself trapped on a large asteroid that was rotating like a giant wheel. His magnetic boots kept him attached to the surface, but the spinning motion made it impossible to aim his weapons or move effectively. "This is not fair," Kvorth shouted as he was spun around and around. "You are changing the rules of combat." "Why?" "I'm not changing any rules," Minho replied as he safely watched from a stable position. "I am just using the arena's systems the way they were designed to be used." The spinning continued to increase until Kvorth's heavy armor became a serious problem. The centrifugal force was so strong that his magnetic boots began to strain against their power limits. If they failed, he would be thrown off the asteroid and sent spinning through space. Kvorth tried to deactivate his magnetic boots and jump to another asteroid, but the timing was impossible. Every time he prepared to jump, the spinning changed his orientation and made it unsafe to let go. After 10 minutes of being spun like a metal top, Kvorth finally had enough. "I surrender," he shouted over the noise of his clanking armor. "Turn off the spinning madness." The referee's voice announced the winner, and Minho began returning the magnetic systems to their normal settings. The asteroid slowly stopped spinning and returned to stable positions. Kvorth sat on his asteroid looking dizzy and defeated. His black armor was scratched and dented from being bounced around during the spinning. "How did you know that would work?" Kvorth asked as Minho flew over to check on him. Heavy things do not like to spin, Minho explained. Your armor made you too heavy to handle the centrifugal force safely. But how did you know how to change the magnetic systems? They are just machines, Minho said. Adjusted, if you understand how they work. As they left the arena, Minho could see that people were looking at him differently. The crowd was no longer laughing or pointing. Instead, they watched him with curiosity and a little bit of fear in the fighter preparation area. Other competitors studied him carefully. Few tried to talk to him, asking questions about his techniques. Most just stared and whispered to each. OTHER, Dr. Kim Ji-hoon, Earth's chief scientist at the tournament, approached Minho as he was leaving. Need to talk to you, Dr. Kim said. I think I understand what you are doing, and it is more important than anyone realizes. They went to a quiet corner where Dr. Kim could speak privately. You are not fighting your opponents, Dr. Kim said. You are solving engineering problems. Each arena presents a different technical challenge, and you are using your maintenance skills to find solutions. That is what it feels like, Minho agreed. Do you realize what this means? You are demonstrating something that no one in the galaxy has seen before. You are showing that humans do not just adapt to hostile environments. We modify hostile environments to work for us. Minho thought about this. I just fix things that are broken or not working correctly. Minho had been in the tournament for 2 weeks now. He had won 5 more fights after defeating Kvorth, and each victory surprised people more than the last. Against a psychic warrior who could read minds, he had used electromagnetic interference to scramble the creature's thoughts. Against a shapeshifter who could become any form, he had manipulated the arena's temperature to force it into one shape. Against a hive mind collective, he had jammed their communication frequencies until they could not work together. The pattern was always the same. Minho would study the arena systems, find a weakness or a way to modify them, and then use the environment itself to defeat his opponent. He never threw a punch or fired a weapon. He just fixed problems. But now he faced his biggest challenge yet. The semi-final match was against Shardville, the crystalline being from the Nexari Empire. Shardville was one of the tournament favorites. They had been studying Minho's previous fights very carefully. The arena for their fight was set on a volcanic world with extreme heat and toxic gases. Lava flows crossed the fighting area, and geysers of superheated steam shot up from the ground randomly. It was designed to test how well fighters could handle the most dangerous natural environment possible. Minho spent 3 days preparing for the fight. He read everything he could find about crystalline biology and volcanic geology. He also studied Shardville's previous matches, watching how the creature transformed and adapted to different situations. Shardville could change their crystal structure into any shape they wanted. They could become a hammer to crush opponents, or a blade to cut through armor, or a net to capture enemies. Their crystal body was nearly indestructible and could repair itself if damaged. But Minho noticed something interesting in the recordings. Every time Shardville transformed, their body made a specific humming sound. It was very quiet, but Minho's trained ear caught it. The sound reminded him of the resonance frequencies he used when testing crystal components in electronic equipment. On the morning of the fight, Minho felt more nervous than he had for any previous match. The volcanic arena was truly dangerous, and Shardville was much smarter than his previous opponents. If his plan did not work, he would probably be killed by either lava or crystal blades. Yoon-hae came to see him before the fight, as she had. Before every match, the entire galaxy is watching this fight, she said. You have become the most famous human in space. People are calling you the problem solver and the arena hacker. I do not hack anything, Minho said. I just use the systems the way they were designed. I know. But you have changed how people think about combat. Some species are now training their fighters to be more like engineers. Is that good or bad? It is revolutionary, Yoon-hae said. You are showing the galaxy that there are different ways to be strong. Minho put on his heat-resistant suit and checked his tools one more time. The volcanic arena would be hot enough to melt most metals, so he had brought special equipment designed to work in extreme temperatures. The arena was terrifying to see. Rivers of molten lava flowed between black rocks, and clouds of poisonous gas drifted through the air. The heat was so intense that Minho could feel it even through his protective suit. Shardville entered from the opposite side, their crystalline body gleaming like a rainbow in the lava light. They could walk safely on the volcanic rocks because crystal does not melt at the same temperatures as metal or flesh. "So, human, you have finally met an opponent who cannot be defeated by your tricks," Shardville said in a voice like breaking glass.
"I my advice."
"I have studied all your previous fights. I know. You will try to modify the arena systems against me." "Maybe," Minho said. "It will not work. I am not dependent on armor like Cavorth or electrical fields like Thrixon. I am pure crystal. I can adapt to any environment you create." "We will see," Minho said. The referee signaled the start of the fight, and Shardville immediately began transforming. Their crystalline body flowed like liquid and reformed into a massive hammer. They swung at Minho with enough force to crush a vehicle. Minho rolled away from the attack and ran toward the nearest volcanic vent. The hammer struck the ground where he had been standing and left a deep crater in the rock. Shardville transformed again, this time into a series of crystal spears. They launched the spears at Minho like missiles, each one capable of piercing through thick armor. Minho ducked behind a lava flow and began working on his plan. The volcanic arena had seismic monitoring equipment buried throughout the fighting area. These sensors measured earthquake activity and helped predict when eruptions might occur. But Minho was not interested in predicting earthquakes. He was interested in creating them. Shardville transformed into a crystal net and tried to capture Minho. But he slipped away and continued working with the seismic equipment. Using his tools, he began overloading the sensors and creating false readings in the arena's computer systems. "What are you doing now, human?" Shardville called out as they reformed into a giant crystal blade. "There are no electromagnetic fields here for you to manipulate." Minho did not answer. He was too busy calculating resonance frequencies and seismic wavelengths. Every crystal had a natural harmonic frequency, a specific vibration that would cause it to shatter. The trick was finding Shardville's frequency and then creating it using the volcanic environment. Shardville attacked again, slicing through the air with crystal blades sharp enough to cut atoms. Minho barely escaped by jumping over a lava flow, but the heat was becoming dangerous even with his protective suit. "You cannot run forever," Shardville said as they pursued him across the volcanic landscape. "Eventually, you will make a mistake, and I will cut you apart." But Minho was not running randomly. He was moving in a specific pattern, placing modified seismic sensors in precise locations around the arena. Each sensor was programmed to generate vibrations at a slightly different frequency. When all the sensors were in place, Minho activated them simultaneously. The volcanic ground began to vibrate with dozens of different frequencies at once. Most of the vibrations canceled each other out, but some combined to create interference patterns. Shardville continued their attack, not noticing the subtle changes in the ground's vibration. But as the seismic frequencies built up and interfered with each other, something unexpected happened. The combined vibrations created a resonance pattern that matched the harmonic frequency of Shardville's crystal structure. At first, the effect was small, just a slight tremor in the crystalline being's form. But as the resonance built up, the tremor became stronger. "What is happening to me?" Shardville asked, as their crystal body began to vibrate uncontrollably. "Harmonic resonance," Minho explained as he adjusted the seismic sensors to increase the effect. "Every crystal has a frequency that makes it shake apart. I just had to find yours." Shardville tried to change their structure to escape the resonance, but every form they took was still made of the same basic crystal material. The harmonic frequency affected their entire body, no matter what shape they became. Cracks began to appear in Shardville's crystalline form. They tried to repair the damage, but the resonance was happening faster than they could fix themselves. "Is impossible," Shardville said as larger cracks spread through their body. "You cannot destroy pure crystal with vibrations." "I am not destroying you," Minho said. "I am just making you vibrate at your natural frequency. You are breaking yourself apart." The resonance continued to build until Shardville could no longer maintain structural integrity. Their crystal form began to fracture into smaller and smaller pieces. Realizing they were about to shatter completely, Shardville made the only choice they could. "I surrender," they called out desperately. "Stop the vibrations before I break apart permanently." Immediately shut off the seismic sensors, and the harmonic resonance faded away. Shardville's cracked form slowly stabilized, but they remained very fragile. The referee announced Minho as the winner, and the crowd erupted in amazement. No one had ever seen a crystalline being defeated by sound vibrations, created through volcanic activity, as Minho helped Shardville to the medical area. The crystalline being spoke in a voice filled with respect. "You are not like any fighter I have ever faced," Shardville said. "You do not fight us directly. You make the universe itself fight for you." "I just solve problems," Minho said. "Rob, your problem was that you had a resonance frequency, the arena's. Problem was that it had seismic equipment. I solved both problems at the same time." News of the semifinal victory spread across the galaxy, faster than light-speed communication. Minho, the maintenance worker from Earth, defeated one of the most feared fighters in the tournament, using nothing but volcanic vibrations and engineering knowledge. Professor On So-young from the Mars Military Academy published an emergency report that was read by military leaders on 1,000 worlds. Her conclusion was simple but revolutionary. Humans did not just adapt to hostile environments. They convinced hostile environments to work for them. The report sent shockwaves through galactic society. Species that had dismissed humans as weak and primitive suddenly realized they had been wrong. Earth was not just another member of the galactic community. Earth was something entirely new. In the fighter preparation area, Minho sat quietly and studied information about his final opponent, Gorthok, the Vosk champion who had never lost a fight. The reptilian warrior was everything Minho was not: strong, fast, skilled, and experienced. But Minho had learned something important during his time in the tournament. Every opponent, no matter how powerful, was still subject to the laws of physics. And the laws of physics were just another set of problems that needed solving. The final match would take place in 3 days. Minho had that long to figure out how to convince the universe to help him one more time. He opened his tool bag and began checking his equipment. Win or lose, he would face the final challenge the same way he had faced every other problem in his life. He would find a way to make it work. The day of the championship fight arrived with clear skies and crowds larger than any in tournament history. Beings from across the galaxy had traveled to see the impossible matchup. Gorthak, the unstoppable Vask warrior, against Minho, the human maintenance worker who had never thrown a punch. Minho woke up early and spent the morning reading about his final opponent one more time. Gorthak had won 237 fights without a single loss. He was 8 feet tall, weighed over 400 pounds, and could move faster than most smaller creatures. His scales were harder than armor, his claws could cut through steel, and his tactical knowledge came from 200 years of constant warfare. The final arena was the most complex one in the tournament. It was designed to change environments every 10 minutes. Arctic ice fields, burning deserts, underwater caverns, and toxic swamps. Each environment had different challenges. Fighters had to adapt quickly or die. Minho had studied the arena's technical specifications for 3 days straight. The environmental systems were incredibly advanced, with hundreds of interconnected components controlling temperature, atmosphere, gravity, and terrain. It was the most sophisticated machine he had ever encountered. In the preparation room, every important human in the galaxy came to see Minho before the fight. Director Han Wubin was there, along with Yoon Hae-ri, Dr. Kim Ji-hoon, and Professor On So-young. Even the Earth's ambassador to the Galactic Council had arrived. "Minho, I want you to know that you have already won," Director Han said. "Regardless of what happens today, you have changed how the galaxy sees humanity. We are proud of you. Do not think about the pressure," Yoon Hae-ri added. "Just solve the problem like you always do." "What if I cannot solve it?" Minho asked. "Gorthok is different from the others. He is not dependent on any single system or ability. He is just better at everything." Dr. Kim smiled. "That might be exactly what you need. The more complex a system is, the more ways there are to modify it." Minho thought about this as he put on his adaptive suit. The suit was designed to work in all 4 environments, but it was bulky and would slow him down even more than usual. The championship arena was enormous, with different sections for each environment. Minho could see ice fields, sand dunes, underwater areas, and swampland, all connected by transition zones. Millions of spectators filled the stands, and billions more watched on broadcasts across the galaxy. Gorthak entered the arena like a conquering army. The reptilian warrior wore no armor because his scales were tougher than any metal. He carried no weapons because his claws and teeth were sharper than any blade. He moved with the confidence of someone who had never known defeat. "So, human, we meet at last," Gorthok said in a voice like grinding stone. "I have watched all your previous fights. Your tricks will not work against me." "Why not?" Minho asked. "Yes, because I am not weak like the others. I do not depend on electromagnetic fields or heavy armor or crystal structures. I am a perfect warrior, created by evolution and trained by centuries of combat. There is nothing you can do to the environment that will stop me. We will see," Minho said. The referee announced the rules of the championship match. This fight will take place across 4 different environments, changing every 10 minutes. The match continues until one fighter surrenders or is unable to continue. "Fighters, are you ready?" "Ready," Gorthok said with a roar that shook the arena. "Ready," Minho said quietly. "Begin." The arena started in the Arctic environment.
Now.
And ice covered the ground, and the temperature was cold enough to freeze metal. Gorthok immediately charged across the ice field with incredible speed. His massive feet left deep prints in the frozen ground as he rushed toward Minho. Minho ran toward the nearest environmental control station. The Arctic section had heating elements buried under the ice to prevent everything from freezing solid. If he could modify their settings, he might be able to change the terrain. But Gorthok was faster than any opponent Minho had faced before. The reptilian warrior reached the control station at the same time as Minho and smashed it with one clawed hand. Sparks flew as the delicate electronics were destroyed. "No more tricks, human," Gorthak said as he swung a massive fist at Minho's. Min-Ho barely dodged the attack and rolled away across the ice. For the first time in the tournament, he was taking damage. Gorthok's speed and skill made it's almost impossible to reach any of the environmental systems. The arena shifted to the desert environment. The ice melted away and was replaced by burning sand and scorching heat. Minho tried to reach the climate control systems, but Gorthok stayed close to him, attacking with claws and teeth. "You cannot run from me forever," Gorthok said as he slashed at Minho with razor-sharp claws. "I am faster than you, stronger than you, and smarter than you." This fight was over before it began. Environment changed again, this time too. The underwater caverns. Both fighters were suddenly surrounded by water and had to use breathing apparatus to survive. Gorthak moved through the water like he was born in it, while Minho struggled with the bulky equipment. "Even underwater, you cannot escape," Gorthak said through his breathing mask as he grabbed Minho with powerful hands. Minho twisted away and swam toward a water filtration system. But Gorthak caught him before he could reach it. The reptilian warrior's grip was like a steel trap. The arena changed to the toxic swamp environment. Poisonous gases filled the air, and thick mud covered the ground. Minho's breathing apparatus protected him from the toxins, but Gorthak seemed unaffected. "By the poison?" "My scales protect me from any toxin," Gorthok explained as he threw Minho into the muddy ground. "Nothing in any of these environments can hurt me." Minho lay in the mud, breathing hard and thinking fast. Gorthok was right. The reptilian warrior was perfectly adapted to handle any single environment. But Minho had noticed something during their fight each time the arena changed environments. There was a brief transition period where the old systems shut down and the new ones started up. During those transitions, Gorthok had to adjust to the new conditions, just like anyone else. But what if the transitions never stopped? What if all 4 environments were active at the same time? Minho had been thinking about this problem wrong. He did not need to defeat Gorthek in any single environment. He needed to create an environment that changed faster than anyone could adapt to it. As the arena cycled back to the Arctic setting, Minho put his plan into action. Instead of trying to modify one environmental system, he began connecting all 4 systems together. Using his tools and his knowledge of complex machinery, he started creating feedback loops between the different environmental controls. "What are you doing now?" Gorthak demanded, as he chased Minho across the ice field. "There is nothing here that can save you," Minho did not answer. He was too busy rewiring the connections between the Arctic cooling system and the desert heating system. Then he connected the underwater pressure controls to the swamp gas generators. At first, nothing seemed to happen. The arena continued its normal cycle from ice to desert to water to swamp, but Minho's modifications were building up like pressure in a steam engine. "You are wasting your time," Gorthak said as he cornered Minho near a frozen wall. "I have adapted to all 4 environments. Your modifications cannot change that." "You adapted to 4 separate environments," Minho said, as he made the final connection in his improvised system. "But what happens when all 4 environments try to exist in the same place at the same time?" Suddenly, the arena's carefully controlled environmental systems began to interfere with each other. The heating elements from the desert environment activated while the cooling systems from the Arctic environment were still running. The water pressure from the underwater environment mixed with the gas pressure from the swamp environment. The result was chaos. Ice formed and melted simultaneously. Water boiled and froze at the same time. Toxic gases mixed with breathable air in impossible combinations. The arena became a constantly changing maze where the rules of physics seemed to break down. Gorthak found himself trying to adapt to an environment that changed every few seconds. One moment he was standing on solid ice, the next moment he was swimming through boiling water. Then he was breathing toxic gas while standing in burning sand. "This is impossible." Gorthak roared as he struggled to maintain his footing on ground that kept changing from ice to mud to water to sand. Environments cannot change this fast. They can if you connect the control systems correctly, Minho said as he watched from a relatively stable area where the environmental chaos was less severe. Gorthak's perfect adaptations became useless. When there was nothing stable to adapt to, his scales protected him from cold, but not from rapid temperature changes. His claws gave him traction on solid ground, but not on surfaces that shifted between ice and quicksand every few seconds. The reptilian warrior tried to reach Minho, but every step brought new challenges. The ground beneath his feet changed, from solid to liquid to gas and back again. The air around him shifted from freezing cold to burning hot to underwater pressure to toxic fumes. After 10 minutes of fighting an environment that refused to stay the same, Gorthak finally stopped moving. He stood in the center of the chaotic arena, surrounded by swirling combinations of ice,